Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of BTTH Rebirth of Emperor Yang episode number 122 based on novel. So let's start. When he got the flaming flower, it was a temporary thing in Xiao Yang's heart. Suddenly, his whole mood became a lot easier. When Xiao Yang and Jin Yarrow left the auction house together, Xiao Yang found that they had spent a day and a night in the auction house unconsciously. Now, it was the 5th day when they first came to Yangcheng. Out of the auction house, the originally crowded crowd outside had already dispersed. However, it was noon and there were many pedestrians on the road. Seeing Xiao Yang walking slowly out of the auction house, especially Murong Qianqian, who is next to Xiao Yang, and Jin Yarrow, who is enchanting, the eyes of those men in the street immediately became hot. Everyone stretched out their necks and widened their eyes. They constantly scanned the two peerless beauties. In particular, Jin Yarrow's exposed body looked more white under the reflection of the sun. Her plump upper body, flat belly and white long legs made the men present feel a burst of blood boiling, and wanted to rush at her immediately. When they noticed Jin Yarrow's cold eyes, they all trembled fiercely. The mind just born in their heart was immediately watered out. Instead, it was a sense of fear from the bottom of their heart. Hum. With a faint cold hum, Jin Yarrow's look in her beautiful eyes didn't get much better. Her delicate body moved, then paced up the void and left first. After that, Xiao Yang glanced at Jin Yarrow's snow-white back exposed to the air. A pair of dark eyes could not help narrowing slowly. He knew that Jin Yarrow's mood was not because of these people in front of him, but because of Zhao Xian. Just now in the stone chamber, Xiao Yang and Jin Yarrow couldn't help asking Fang Qian about Zhao Xian. Listening to the latter, Jin Yarrow's pretty face didn't get any better, but gradually became more gloomy. As for Xiao Yang, he had a little doubt about Zhao Shenzhuan. After Fang Qian's general explanation, he realized it. No wonder that Zhao Xian showed a strong killing intention in his eyes when he looked at himself. It turned out that this guy was the owner of the Zhao family in Sulan City half a month ago. He wanted to know what happened there. Otherwise, he wouldn't look at Xiao Yang like this. However, while understanding these, Xiao Yang couldn't help but sink slightly. If so, doesn't it mean that Zhao Xian already knows his identity? In the burning city where the strong fighters of the fighting emperor gather today, once his identity of Xiao Yang is discovered by the strong fighters of the fighting emperor, won't it put Xiao Yang in a situation of being besieged on all sides immediately? However, it seems that Zhao Xian hasn't made it public to the public. That is to say, Xiao Yang still has enough time to leave the burning city. Who? Thinking of this, Xiao Yang couldn't help but breathe a long breath. Fortunately, now the flaming flower has fallen into his hands. There is nothing else worth Xiao Yang staying in this burning city. Let's go. There's no need to go back to that residence. Leave as soon as possible. Lightly said a word, Xiao Yang took Murong Qianqian in one hand, and the latter also nodded and followed up like a little daughter-in-law. Immediately, Xiao Yang's toes lightly touched the ground, and with a circle of invisible space ripples spreading, Xiao Yang's two bodies also stepped into the void. Without hesitation, they immediately flew away to the west outside the burning city. After their figures left the burning city, a middle-aged man appeared on the roof of a building very abruptly. A pair of silver eyes, full of indifference, stared at the direction Xiao Yang left. Under his sleeve robe, the white palm slowly grasped, and the corners of his mouth also aroused a cold and piercing sneer. After a few short breaths, the middle-aged man's body slowly disappeared on the roof again. At the same time, there was a sneer in the clouds, under the charming body wrapped in a red skirt and on Jin Yarrow's pretty face. The mantis catches cicadas and the yellow finches are behind. This Huaji pill must be in my bag. With a low whisper in her mouth, Jin Yaojiao moved and quickly flew away towards the west outside the city. At the speed of Xiao Yang, they had traveled nearly 10,000 miles in less than half an hour. At this time, they looked back and Yangcheng had disappeared from their vision early. As they got closer and closer to Nashahipu, the surrounding environment gradually became different. The vast green mountains and forests below now look like yellow-orange gold, as if it was the golden autumn. The emerald-like turf on the earth gradually disappeared and turned into a piece of red and yellow sand. The fierce vigorous wind swept by Xiao Yang's ear like an arrow, and the broken wind echoed endlessly between heaven and earth. When they passed through the void, the invisible momentum and pressure flowed down a deep gully over the red and yellow forest below. With Xiao Yang's departure, the mountains and forests slowly returned to calm, and those gullies were filled up. Until a certain moment, the bodies of the two people who were flying rapidly stopped in mid-air. Murong Qianqian looked around with a curious look on his pretty face, then looked at Xiao Yang and asked, "What's the matter? Is there anything wrong here? We are afraid of being ambushed." Looking around, Xiao Yang's eyes narrowed, and the vast soul power in the center of his eyebrows spread out to the greatest extent, and the look on his face became solemn. Under the shadow of Xiao Yang's soul power, the whole world around him was reflected in his eyes. He could detect that there were several obscure smells between the world. Those smells were the reason why Xiao Yang stopped. Xiao Yang, who is now a third-order herbalist, can't find out the position accurately. "I'm afraid the source of the breath is unusual." Immediately after that, Xiao Yang, standing in the void, turned suddenly. He had clearly realized that there was an extremely powerful and domineering atmosphere behind him, and was flying towards Xiao Yang. "Zhao Xian, this guy secretly followed us. No, this guy should have guessed that we would go in this direction, so he set up ambush here long ago. He knows how strong the soul power of a third-order herbalist is. It is impossible to track alone." Murong Qianqian's words just fell, but Xiao Yang shook his head immediately, and his tone was full of dignified words. "Ha ha. Xiao Yang, I didn't expect that. Even if you are careful all the way, you will also be stopped here by me." There was a crazy killing intention in the laughter. At the next moment, Zhao Xian's body shape had appeared on the void hundreds of feet away from Xiao Yang. A little red light appeared in a pair of silver pupils. With Zhao Xian's breath, the momentum in his body turned and the void around him trembled. Mu Lu stared at the middle-aged man in front of him. Xiao Yang's face quickly became gloomy. While carefully watching Zhao Xian in front of him, he also pulled Murong Qianqian behind him. "Are you the owner of the Zhao family?" Xiao Yang's eyes narrowed, and the fighting spirit in his body had been running all over his body. The soul power was shrouded in the positive heaven and earth. Any wind and grass between heaven and earth would fall into Xiao Yang's eyes at the moment. You already know, but it's good. If the head of the province talks more nonsense, as for now, you can die." His face gave a grim smile. Immediately after that, Zhao Xian's body suddenly trembled, and the figure standing on the void disappeared in an instant. At the same time, Xiao Yang's face was full of dignity, and his expression became more dignified and gloomy in an instant. There was a bad sound in Xiao Yang's heart. The silk in Xiao Yang's heart did not dare to be careless. As soon as his body shook, the fighting spirit in his body burst out from the pores on Xiao Yang's body surface. Immediately after that, it turned into a surging gorgeous flame, quickly covered Xiao Yang's body and burned up. It's said that you have a different fire. It's true when I see you today. However, even if it's a different fire to protect your body, it's just a half-emperor and a pseudo-emperor. In front of this emperor, it's just a mole ant." While the fire on Xiao Yang's body surface was rising, Zhao Xian's cold laughter full of disdain also sounded in the world. Zhao Xian's voice like thunder echoed around, which made it difficult for ordinary people to determine his specific position. However, with the soul power of Xiao Yang's third-order herbalist, it's not difficult to find out Zhao Xian's position. Up there. Xiao Yang's face looked a little chilly in his heart. He immediately thought about it, and the dragon phoenix's blood in his body was immediately stimulated. The purple and golden blood force seemed to be alive. It was boiling in the blood vessels in Xiao Yang's body, and even Xiao Yang's heart beat more violently at this moment. Huang Quan Tianyu. Xiao Yang suddenly raised his head and opened his mouth angrily. At the same time, an earth-shaking roar came out of Xiao Yang's mouth. Moo, moo, moo. The roar was like thunder and earth-shaking. The whole heaven and earth where the three people lived trembled violently at this moment. Circles of invisible space ripples spread vertically and horizontally between the heaven and earth like waves. With the extension of the roar, they couldn't hold on, collapsed and turned into endless darkness. Xiao Yang's record of heaven's anger hit his soul directly, which made Zhao Xian's face suddenly coagulate, and his nose couldn't help but utter a stuffy hum. It was obvious that he was taken by surprise by Xiao Yang's blow. At the same time, in the void some distance away from the three of Xiao Yang, Jin Yao, whose body is hidden in the void, can't help but frown under Xiao Yang's voice, and a look of surprise appears on her pretty face. Unexpectedly, Xiao Yang, as a 6-star and half-emperor, can display such a powerful fighting skill and power. It can't be compared with ordinary 6-star and half-emperors. Even some ordinary 8-star and half-emperors can't show such powerful fighting skills. This boy, no wonder he can survive in the hands of the 4 fighting emperors. He really has great ability. He was secretly surprised. On the other hand, Zhao Xian was also surprised by Xiao Yang's strength. He didn't expect that a 6-star-and-a-half emperor could burst out a terrorist force that even 8-star-and-a-half emperors could not have. Although this force was not enough to hurt him, it has also proved the terrorist potential contained in Xiao Yang's body. Once he grows up in the future, I'm afraid even the strong emperor will have nothing to do with him. At that time, the whole western region will bow down to him. Die. With this in mind, Zhao Xian could not help feeling a potential crisis in his heart. The best way for this enemy who has not yet fully grown up is to strangle it in the cradle. The 4 major doors do exactly that, especially Zhao Xian at the moment. With an angry drink, Zhao Xian's body suddenly shook, and the fighting spirit in his body quickly spread to the palm of his hand. Then he burst out with fierce anger, quickly condensed into a huge gun in the void, and shot hard at Xiao Yang's head in an instant with a fierce and incomparable hegemonic power. Seeing this, the dignified color on Xiao Yang's face did not decrease. He quickly withdrew half a step backward. His palms were quickly lifted to his chest and his mind was moved. The 3 mysterious changes of sky fire were immediately displayed. The breath in Xiao Yang's body also increased rapidly. In a few short breaths, Xiao Yang's strength has increased from the early stage of 6-star-and-a-half emperor to the middle stage of 6-star-and-a-half emperor. Even from the later stage, it's just a thin line. The 3 mysterious changes of heaven and fire were displayed. Xiao Yang still looked very dignified on his face, and he didn't dare to have the slightest carelessness in his heart. In the face of the strong man fighting the emperor, if Xiao Yang can't do his best, I'm afraid he will lose completely. Feeling the vigorous fighting spirit in his body, Xiao Yang's left hand turned into a palm. A pair of dark eyes stared at the rapidly falling giant gun over his head, and then the next moment, when the giant gun fell, a black dot the size of a thumb in the palm of Xiao Yang's left hand also condensed with it. Heaven-created palm. At the same time, Xiao Yang's left palm suddenly burst out at this moment. The sharp wind-breaking sound when his palm crossed the void swept the sky like an eagle, and the whole heaven and earth sent out bursts of tremors. Dang! With an earth-shaking noise, the painted black energy aperture released by the great heaven fortune palm collided with the oncoming giant gun. At the moment of their collision, a terrible invisible force swept out from between them, just like a tsunami, sweeping freely across the vast void. In the twinkling of an eye, the emptiness within 1,000 feet around Xiao Yang suddenly collapsed under this force and turned into an endless dark emptiness. The deep emptiness makes people feel a sense of desolation and fear from their heart. Pooh! After a short stalemate, Xiao Yang's face suddenly turned pale, and a dull hum came from his throat. Immediately after that, he couldn't help spewing out a mouthful of blood. The whole person's breath became weak at this moment. Bang! However, before Xiao Yang could react, Zhao Xian immediately stepped on the top of the giant gun. Suddenly, there was a powerful force on the giant gun, and under Zhao Xian's foot, it became invincible. In just a moment, he destroyed Xiao Yang's great fortune palm. The palm of heaven's creation was broken. Zhao Xian moved and grabbed the handle of the giant gun at his feet. The gun tip was fiercely picked and stabbed into the center of Xiao Yang's eyebrows. At this time, Xiao Yang felt the approaching danger and finally recovered. At the moment of looking up, the rape had come to the top of Xiao Yang's head. It was only 2 inches away from the center of his eyebrows. Die! With a ferocious roar, Zhao Xian's body was shocked, and his power on the long gun in his hand was even more overbearing. Seeing this scene, Xiao Yang's eyes suddenly coagulated. At the same time, he was shocked and moved. He wanted to display 6 tabernacles. At this moment, there were only 6 tabernacles that Xiao Yang could use to avoid the spear to the greatest extent. However, at the next moment, a cold light came from Xiao Yang's eyes. The dazzling light made Xiao Yang unable to open his eyes, but at the same time, a cold voice like Jinling also spread in the sky. If you bully 1.5 emperors, what kind of emperor are you, and what kind of man are you? When his heart was frozen, Xiao Yang raised his eyes and looked aside. The person who shot was Jin Yarrow. Ding! The words fell, and the bright long sword trembled gently. After a crisp sound, he played the long gun in Zhao Xian's hand. When the great power came, the long gun condensed in Zhao Xian's hand immediately left his hand. While his steps flew back, the long gun also turned into a light spot and dissipated in the void. Seeing this, Jin Yarrow smiled playfully, turned her head slightly and looked at Xiao Yang with a stunned face. Why are you here? Seeing Jin Yarrow's charming smile, Xiao Yang frowned slightly. At the same time, he asked Jin Yarrow in doubt. Cluck, why, can't I just allow you to appear here? Jin Yarrow pursed her lips and smiled, flattering all sentient beings. Smelling the speech, Xiao Yang glanced at the latter, but he didn't believe the latter. "You're not following me, are you?" Thinking of some possibility, Xiao Yan was a little nervous in his heart, but he looked like a joke. The fighting spirit in his body worked secretly, and he was a little nervous in his heart. "I said yes, do you believe it?" Looking at Xiao Yang with an evil smile, Jin Yaro took back the long sword and said with a smile. Seeing the latter, Xiao Yang was relieved. Although he had not been in contact with the latter for a long time, Xiao Yang could guess about the woman's temperament. Since she showed this appearance, there would be no danger. "Cluck, I guessed early in the morning that this guy will never let you go easily. He can know your identity without making it public. It means that he covets something on you. In order to get it, he will never let you expose your identity in Yangcheng. If you leave Yangcheng, he will know. Therefore, on the one hand, it is for my 1,000 trees, on the other hand, it is also for Huajidan. I just followed him all the way here." Jin Yaro smiled and guessed the reason why Zhao Xian didn't expose Xiao Yang's identity. Listening to this, Xiao Yang couldn't help feeling terrible for the woman in front of her. A female generation not only has terrible strength, but also her mind is beyond the reach of people. "I'm afraid she can't be stopped by the order of fighting the emperor in the future." Woman, even if you can guess these, what can you do? How can you be the opponent of the emperor alone? On the other hand, Zhao Xian also heard Jin Yaro's words. He was surprised. At the same time, an uncontrollable anger arose from the bottom of his heart. Had it not been for the sudden appearance of this woman just now, Xiao Yang would have become the soul under his gun. All the treasures in his hand, even the strange fire, would belong to him. But now, if this woman destroyed his situation, how could he not be angry? Cough. "Hihi, who said it was a person? You didn't pay much attention to me." He coughed uncontrollably. Xiao Yang wiped the blood on his lips. At the same time, with a wave of his big hand, the black and thick Shen heavy ruler fell into his hand. Before, in order not to be found, Shen Chongkai had been put in the ring. Now that he has been recognized, Xiao Yang naturally has no worries. Starting with the giant ruler, while the edge of the ruler fell, the sound of the breaking wind came out, giving people a heavy and incomparable sense of vision. Boy, it's up to you." Seeing Xiao Yang take out the Shen heavy ruler, Zhao Xian sneered. However, the voice just fell, and Murong Chanxian on the other side suddenly made a sound at this moment. "And me." Seeing this, Xiao Yang's face could not help but change slightly. However, without waiting for him to speak, Zhao Xian grinned. His smile was dark and bloodthirsty, which made people feel cold at the back. "Well, since you don't know what death is, let's go together. The Emperor will tell you today what absolute strength is." As the cold laughter fell, Zhao Xian suddenly grasped his big hand, and a long snow-white gun fell into his hand. This time, this is a real spear, not the energy spear condensed by fighting spirit. In contrast, when this spear is used, it is not comparable to the weapon condensed by fighting spirit in terms of power or other aspects. With this spear in hand, Zhao Xian's strength has increased a lot out of thin air. Mai Mao glanced at Murong Chanxian. Jin Yaro didn't care too much about the latter, but looked at Xiao Yang. Now Xiao Yang is her gold master. In contrast, a Murong Chanxian is really nothing. "Are you sure you can do it? This guy is a fighting emperor. You can't even stop him. Can you really be sure?" She frowned slightly. Jin Yaro asked Xiao Yang with a little worry on her face. "Hihi, don't worry. If I'm not sure, I won't stand up and try to be strong. Besides, I can't fear him with you, the beautiful fighting emperor." A smile made the atmosphere between the two relaxed a lot. Seeing this scene, Murong Chanxian frowned secretly in her heart. She even hated why she was not the Jin Yaro in front of her and why she was not a strong fighter. However, it is useless to think more about these at present. Seeing that the three people are not offensive, they are flirting there, which makes Zhao Xian angry. With a wave of the long gun in his hand, there was a roaring wind in the void. Immediately, the gun body shook, and a silver-white fighting spirit gushed out of Zhao Xian's body, quickly covered the gun body, moved, and took the lead in rushing towards Xiao Yang. The sharp tip of the gun pierced the void and made a harsh sound. Under the blessing of fighting spirit, it was like a comet across the sky and rushed at Xiao Yang. Meteor gun. As Zhao Xian uttered a startling and fierce drink in his mouth, in the twinkling of an eye, Zhao Xian came to Xiao Yang with a long gun in his hand. The tip of the gun swung, leaving countless remnants in the void, and stabbed Xiao Yang hard together. "Let me come." Seeing this scene, the smile on Jin Yaro's pretty face disappeared in an instant. Her delicate body moved and stood in front of Xiao Yang. At the same time, Her wrist turned and her long sword directly met the long gun in front of her. Thousands of sails without shadow sword. The long sword in Jin Yao's hand was immediately waved. The light sword body trembled gently in the void. In the twinkling of an eye, the void in front of Jin Yao was filled with countless sword shadows. The mind moved, and those sword shadows were like essence, facing the oncoming long gun. Ding ding. The crisp collision sounded like Jin Ling. Finally, countless gun shadows were broken. Zhao Xian's first round of attack was blocked by Jin Yao for the time being. However, there is no sense of relaxation on Jin Yao's face at the moment. Zhao Xian is a strong man in the middle of the two-star fighting emperor. Naturally, his means are more than this. When he really makes a move, I'm afraid he is himself and will not be his opponent. Dang dang. The fierce battle in the sky has been going on for a long time unconsciously. During this period, neither Xiao Yang nor Zhao Xian has shown real strength. At the moment, Zhao Xian seems to be the biggest player in the field. If he doesn't make a move, no one can easily expose his cards. The battle in front of him seems to be just his show. Every move is made in every form. Although it seems brainless, it still makes people dare not underestimate it. During several collisions, the joint offensive of Xiao Yang and Jin Yao was easily taken over by Zhao Xian, and the long gun in his hand also made Xiao Yang suffer a lot. Ding! The snow-white spear collided with the heavy black ruler again. Under the terrible weight of the ruler, the spear had been pressed out of an extremely dangerous arc in the twinkling of an eye. It seemed that as long as you break it with a little force, it would be broken in two. Feeling the terrible power from the ruler, Zhao Zhaozhong couldn't help but look surprised. Unexpectedly, Xiao Yang, who looked so thin, still had such strong physical strength. Hum. With a cold hum, Zhao Xian's palm holding the handle of the gun suddenly shook, and the surging fighting spirit in the palm immediately rushed out and merged into the snow-white long gun in his hand. Immediately, a burst of bright white light was scattered on the long gun. Broken. The palm and wrist of the hand holding the gun handle shook fiercely, and the whole gun body bent fiercely at this moment. The gun body made of special Shen steel was like a white snake, with an unimaginable arc. Soon, the long gun swung fiercely, and then it hit the Shen heavy ruler, wide and strong ruler. Dang! Zhao Xian attacked again without losing a blow, which made Xiao Yang a little unprepared. While the giant ruler in his hand was hit hard and bounced back, Xiao Yang quickly felt a numbness in the palm of his hand. In the violent shaking of the ruler, Xiao Yang's tiger mouth also shed a trace of blood. With a slight chill in his heart, Xiao Yang's hand did not stop at all. While walking backward, he lifted the heavy ruler in his hand again, and his mind moved. With a puff, the gorgeous fire suddenly rose from the rise of the ruler. Xiao Yang waved his arm, and a rainbow-like brilliant fire took shape in the void. At the same time, a very powerful Kaimang also swept out from the Kai front to meet the storm. In the twinkling of an eye, it turned into a fire wave as high as 100 feet and attacked Zhao Xian. The flame devours the wave ruler. At the same time, Jin Yao waved his long sword again. The sword body shook like a water snake, cutting through the void and stabbing Zhao Xian. Hum, little skill. Seeing this, Zhao Xian sneered. He picked up the long gun in his hand, and the tip of the gun danced. The silver fighting spirit gathered rapidly in front of Zhao Xian. Faintly, there was a slapping sound like a sea wave. Guns lift thousands of waves. As the cry fell, Zhao Xian picked up his long gun again. When his fighting spirit poured out, he turned into a more terrible thousand-jong wave and attacked Xiao Yang and Jin Yao. The waves condensed, and Xiao Yang's eyes suddenly condensed. The strong man fighting the emperor was so terrible. The power of this attack was many times stronger than his flame and swallow the wave ruler. Falling flowers form a shadow and kill with a sword. Then, just as Xiao Yang's face changed, a light and pleasant drink came over his head. At the same time, a powerful breath that was inferior to Zhao Shenju immediately came. Wang buzzing. The void rippled like water waves, and invisible ripples gradually spread from Jin Yao's body. Jin Yao pointed the long sword in his hand, and the sharp tip of the sword pointed directly at Zhao Xian. The fighting spirit poured out, and countless bright red petals were quickly condensed in front of Jin Yao. The petals moved with the wind in the sky, as if they were dancers dancing in the sky. They were light and flexible. Coupled with their swaying posture, it was a burst of blood boiling in the heart. However, at present, Zhao Xian has no time to pay attention to such a beautiful scenery. Compared with Jin Yao's beauty, he knows that this seemingly flower bottle-like woman has extremely terrible power. Her strength is that no one dares to underestimate the whole western region. The The flower rain all over the sky is like a fiery meteor in the daytime. It floats down from the sky. There are thousands of red mans passing by. Even the whole sky is rendered into a fiery red color. Invisible, it seems that the sound of swords spreads in the sky, and the invisible void sends out bursts of vibrators. Under this power, even this heaven and earth are afraid of it. The sea of flowers fell and the shadow of the gun circulated. At this moment, Xiao Yang's flame bite wave ruler seemed a little timid. Compared with the former, it was more like a child and two adults. Bang! Just as soon as he touched, Xiao Yang's flame ate the wave ruler, and was instantly buried by the gun's shadow like a wave. When the ruler method was broken, Xiao Yang looked a little pale, and his face was completely bloodless. A stuffy hum came out of his throat. A mouthful of blood came out of his mouth again. A pair of dark pupils were full of horror at the moment. The strong man fighting the emperor was really strong. His fighting skills made Xiao Yang have no backhand. This kind of rolling war situation can be said to be the first time in Xiao Yang's history. However, then, countless falling flowers have collided with the still powerful white wave. The bright contrast of the two colors, above the sky, makes the war situation more clear at a glance. At a glance, countless petals burst out countless sword lights at the moment of falling. The sharp sword sound was like the roar of warcraft, which made people's eardrums hurt. Although the sword light emitted by these petals is fierce, those dense gun shadows are more domineering. Wherever those gun shadows pass, the void is forcibly torn out of a dark space crack, and the whole sky has been in a state of continuous disintegration. At the moment when the two collided, the countless gun shadows were like starving tigers, tearing up all the petals in the sky. The sharp sword light was severely broken by the gun shadow at the moment of collision. Seeing this scene, the look on Jin Yao's pretty face changed slightly even if she couldn't help it. However, before she did anything, Zhao Xian suddenly laughed. Ha ha ha, I've given you a chance before, but since you don't know how to cherish it, I won't play with you. With a fierce smile, Zhao Xian's long gun suddenly swung fiercely. The amazing wave condensed by countless gun shadows also twisted violently. A crack was slowly separated in the middle of the wave, countless gun shadows condensed rapidly, and a white light was emitted, and a fuzzy figure dressed in armor was condensed over the crack. Let you see what the real human-level fighting skills are. Seeing this scene, Xiao Yang's face suddenly coagulated, and his heart couldn't help feeling a deep shock. This is fighting skill and spirit. As we all know, fighting skills are divided into 8 levels according to ordinary levels: Saint, meaning, Spirit, Man, and Heaven, Earth, Xian and Huang. These 8 levels are the same truth recognized by the whole continent. This is not driven by ordinary people, but through the verification of history and the certification of countless powerful people. Of course, the fighting skills of each level are divided into primary, intermediate and advanced fighting skills. In this regard, the skill methods are also similar. However, in terms of high-level kung fu fighting skills, especially human-level kung fu fighting skills, this level of kung fu fighting skills is different from other levels. In addition to the above 3 kinds of human-level fighting skills, there is another kind, which is higher than the first 3 and lower than the spiritual level. That is, fighting skill turns spirit. Different from ordinary fighting skills turn into spirit, which is not only a judgment on the height of fighting skills themselves, but also a memorial to their creators. However, people who turn fighting skills into spirits can condense the image of the creator of fighting skills when they practice fighting skills, which can not only greatly improve their control over fighting skills, but also increase the power released after the exertion of fighting skills. At present, Zhao Xian's gun lifting 1,000 waves is obviously a human advanced fighting skill that turns fighting skills into spirits. Zhao Xian, who is already powerful, has demonstrated such strong fighting skills that the strength of fighting skills has reached an incredible level. Even with the strength of Jin Yao, it is absolutely not easy to take Zhao Xian's blow. At this moment, on the waves condensed by countless gun shadows, the virtual shadow in armor slowly lifted the long gun in his hand. With Zhao Shenxin's reading, the long gun pointed directly at Jin Yao. The terrible breath made the look on Jin Yao's pretty face become dignified in an instant. At the same time, Xiao Yang, who was retreating, looked very grim. It was very difficult for Jin Yao alone to resist Zhao Xian's attack. Fighting skill turns spirit, but we can't underestimate it. The power of this fighting skill in front of us can already be called the strongest under the spirit-level fighting skill. Although Xiao Yang's Buddha Anger Lotus is now a human-level advanced fighting skill, and fighting skill turns spirit, it's a pity that Xiao Yang's strength is insufficient. It's completely unrealistic to compete with Zhao Xian. His eyes narrowed, and Xiao Yan quickly thought about the countermeasures. Under his sleeve robe, a pair of white palms slowly clenched. Invisibly, the power of the avenue has quietly condensed around Xiao Yang. If there is no way, he can only try to see if he can save Jin Yarrow with 6/10 at the moment when the fighting skills fall. At the same time, the fighting spirit in Xiao Yang's body was also rapidly losing at this moment. Meddlesome woman, die. Zhao Xian's heart was full of anger at Jin Yarrow's repeated attempts to stop him from killing Xiao Yang. Although he knew that it was impossible to kill a strong fighter with one strike, his anger must be poured out. In the twinkling of an eye, the falling flowers displayed by Jin Yarrow have been crushed. At the same time, the power contained in the 1,000 heavy waves lifted by the gun has been weakened a lot. But RAO is so, and the power is also high and terrible. Then, the hot gangfoam, which made her blush painful, had slapped on Jin Yarrow's pretty face and was locked by this fighting skill. At present, even if she wanted to hide, it was impossible for her to do so. Therefore, instead of standing in place waiting for the arrival of this thing, it was better to have a bitter duel with Jin Yarrow's temperament. She is a businessman. Winning or losing is also a part of business. She is used to winning or losing, so she will not be afraid. Moreover, as a fighting emperor, she doesn't think Zhao Shenzhen can take her. Xiao Yang, take the girl and leave first. This guy can rest assured and give it to me. Hearing the speech, Xiao Yang's face was slightly frozen, but his heart was a little worried. He left Jin Yarrow here alone. Just go. Don't forget, I'm the fighting emperor. Although this guy is strong, he can't kill me. If you stay here, you will become a drag on me. Let's go. Jin Yarrow's tone is solemn. Although she always has an inexplicable confidence in Xiao Yang, at present, in the face of Zhao Xian's human-level fighting skills, she doesn't expect Xiao Yang to show up to resist. After all, the power of this thing is really too terrible. Even she has to pay a big price to resist. Xiao Yang's eyes turned and looked at Murong Chanshan at the moment. After the start of the war between the two sides, although she could see a stubborn meaning from her pretty face, the girl still hid outside the battle circle. Yes, even Xiao Yang, who is as powerful as 9-star and half emperor, can't bear this level of battle, let alone an ordinary 4-star and half emperor. Seeing Xiao Yang's eyes, the girl raised her beautiful eyes, and there was a color of fear in her eyes. Growing up in a greenhouse, she has never seen such an earth-shaking war. Perhaps it is a great courage for her to continue to stand here. Bang! At the same time, on the other side, Jin Yarrow's face was pale and collided with the oncoming man's step fighting skills. At this moment, the fighting spirit in both sides was a crazy pouring without money. A terrible energy storm centered on Jin Yarrow swept in all directions in this void. Puff! However, Jin Yarrow was defeated by Zhao Xian after all. However, due to the gap between the two people's strength and the advanced fighting skills of fighting skills, Jin Yarrow was not the opponent of Zhao Xian at all. With a puff, Jin Yarrow's pale face turned white at this moment, but he didn't dare to have the slightest carelessness. He waved his long sword, and the fierce sword light continued to shoot out, pounding on the still terrible fighting skills opposite. Ha ha ha. It's a waste of effort. I've killed the strong fighting emperor. I'm more proficient in cultivating him. If I want to break my fighting skills, unless it's a high-level fighting skill of the same level, or my strength is stronger than me, but unfortunately, you don't account for it. As soon as the shrill laughter fell, Zhao Xian suddenly took a long gun in his hand and wanted to take it personally. But at this time, advanced fighting skills. Let's try this. The startling roar suddenly resounded through the world. Beside Jin Yarrow, a painted black tent suddenly condensed in the void. Then, Xiao Yang's body flashed out from it. Without hesitation, a palm was printed on the oncoming fighting skill. Broken. Heart. Palm. This video will end here.